Good evening. You are tuned in to KRFP 90.3 Moscow, Pullman. We are Prosers, a literary chat show starring graduate students in the creative writing program at the University of Idaho. I'm Ross.
Sorry.
No.
That's Ross.
That's Ross making noise. I'm Jason.
Catherine.
Ross.
Do you need any more mic adjustments before we begin?
I got this.
All right. All right, tonight we have a very special guest, Kim Barnes. For those of you who don't know Kim, she is a professor at the University of Idaho and author of 2 memoirs, In the Wilderness and Hungry for the World. She is also the author of 3 novels, Finding Caruso, A Country Called Home, and In the Kingdom of Men. We are super excited to have Kim on the show tonight, but before we get to all that, I'm going to toss the conversation over to Catherine to kick off this evening's jam session.
Great. Thanks, Jason. So we had spring break this last week, and I was gone for most of it. I was in vacation. I was vacationing in Oregon and Washington states. And so I hadn't seen you guys for about a week or so. I saw Jason briefly, but, it had been a few days. With Ross, it had been 10 or 12. So I returned the day before yesterday, and I found 2 remarkable physical alterations were made between you guys. Ross got a buzz cut. Mm-hmm. He still has his beard, though. I really like the buzz cut. It looks great. Jason had a new hat on his head. Mm-hmm. He had gotten rid of his classic. He has this baseball cap that he wears that's black and white. Jason in a baseball cap, the black and white one, is a signature look. It's very iconic. It gives him the same attitude as I think celebrities who wear a baseball cap. Celebrities which include, I looked some up, Fred Durst, Spike Lee, right. Michael Jordan after he's won an NBA championship, and Chris Kyle, who Bradley Cooper plays in American Sniper. They all wear they all have that signature look. Jason was one of them.
It's a very eclectic
And
group.
Then I saw him yesterday. Totally new hat. I didn't even know the name of it, so I did some hat research.
All right.
And I figured out it was either a newsboy,
ding ding ding,
or a flat cap. I think it bordered on a beret.
It's typically called a newsboy. I bought it for St. Patrick's Day because me and another MFA student went out to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and we went to the thrift store first and bought green shirts. And then after that, we were going around thrift stores, and I saw a hat that was similar in a different thrift store, but it was for women. It had a bow on it, and I wanted to buy it, but I didn't want to go around wearing that bow. So then I found this one at another store, so then I bought it.
So it was for Irish, for the Irish.
Yeah, it was like a European look that I was going for.
Nice.
So I looked up celebrities that wear these kind of hats.
Yes.
And I'm just going to tell you who you're channeling.
All right.
Penn Badgley.
Who's that?
Who's on Gossip Girl.
All right.
My gosh.
Jude Law, Justin Timberlake, and Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Another good group of people.
Yeah, not too bad.
And then I also looked up hats. I just looked up hats. I'm just curious about them. So, and I categorize hats, and you guys can tell me what you think, in 3 categories.
Uh-huh.
Silly hats, which include boaters, bowlers, sombreros, top hats, fedoras, and hard hats, and then lame hats, which include cloth sun hats and beanies, and then sexy hats, which include, I think, just a hood. So, guys, what is going on with hats? And what's going on with you and your hat thing? Just, you can keep talking about it.
I had the hat, the classic hat, because I didn't wear many hats because it's hard for a hat to fit my head right. And my sister gave me that hat years ago, probably in 2007. And I was like, wow, this is like the perfect hat. And then I was jealous that she had the hat, and I kind of wanted it secretly. And I don't know if I showed that off because she eventually gifted it to me. She's like, here, I have the hat. and she kind of like threw it at me. So maybe like she didn't really want to give it up, but she saw how much it fit so good on my head. So I've had it for years and years. And when I grow my hair out, you go through a lot of different stages of horrible hair. Like you can't you need to cover that up somehow, or else you kind of look like an idiot. So
it's just easy to put the hat on.
It's easy to put the hat on, and it's easy to wake up and put it on and go to school instead of having to do stuff with your hair. So now it got really dirty, and it's been falling apart throughout the years, and I took a risk. I threw it in the washer. It got destroyed. So, and finding another hat like that is going to take me, who knows. I have to go. I'm seeing my sister this summer, so maybe I'll go through her hats again to see if I can find something. But I don't know.
You have to go on a long journey.
You have to. You have to go on a journey of maybe people or online. I was searching online for hours, and then you just get,
You can't tell what the fold and feel of a hat is going to be through those pictures, though.
No, and a lot of those trucker hats, the tops are really high. So
they don't. It seems like trucker hats. They don't want your top of the head to touch the underneath of the cap.
Yeah, they don't.
You're supposed to have a gap there.
They want to like enlarge your head by like 5 inches in height with those hats, but that one did not do that. So that's why it was a good hat.
Ross, what hats do you like?
Beanies, sometimes a baseball cap. I'm not really a hat guy.
I put beanie under lame hat, but I think some people can pull off a beanie.
He does hood, so he got sexy.
That's
category.
a sexy cap.
I do.
He
Had the
also
hood on
does,
yesterday.
Beanies. Yeah, beanies and hoods. So he's a sexy what? What is
Sexy lame-o.
Sexy lame-o, yeah.
I don't do hats at all. I find myself averse to them. I find that it's maybe too attention seeking. I have kind of a fraught relationship with hats.
Fraught.
Have you ever gotten in a hat phase?
I did in high school. I decided to wear, it was like kind of a cowboy hat. It was felt.
Oh.
It sounds awful, but I thought it was really attractive. But I was very self-conscious wearing it, and it's kind of sad. I wore it for maybe 2 weeks.
You were self-conscious of wearing it, and yet
Yes,
you still wore it?
it was such.
So what made you wear it then?
I just went through a brief period of thinking I'd look really great in this hat.
So then you couldn't. Was it to the point where you couldn't leave the house without the hat? Where you became
No. It was only when I was feeling especially confident in those 2 weeks that I'd put the hat on.
It was only for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Do you still have the hat?
It's somewhere back in Texas where I'm from.
Wow.
Do a lot of people wear cowboy hats in Texas, or is that stupid?
There are some. I think.
Question is that?
Yeah, you're right.
That's a good question. I think that's a fair question.
That was a joke.
People sometimes wear them to be stylish, and then sometimes people wear them for practical reasons, because to get the sun out of their eye.
My cousin went to Texas one time, and hopefully he doesn't listen. I don't know if he'll get mad about this or not. But he was from Illinois, like Bedford Park, or not Bedford Park. Where did he? I don't know, some area south of Chicago area. And he went to Texas. He literally became a cowboy. Came back, belt
You mean
buckle,
just dressed like a cowboy?
dressed and talked like a. He's like, "How you doing, Jason?"
How long did that stick for?
Like a year.
A year?
It was so weird. Like, I'm like, what happened to you out there? So it's like when I was young, seeing this cousin that I knew, and he was like a shaved head and like was wearing baggy jeans, and it's like he's 5 or 6 years older than me. So, and I was probably 14 at the time. Then him coming back to that, it's like, what goes on in Texas?
It gave him class.
I was like, Texas obviously does something to people. I mean, he's wearing a cowboy hat,
I don't know.
belt
That's
buckle.
really weird that he died. If I met that guy, I'd probably think he was pretty dumb. Wow. I hope he's not listening.
I hope he does. But Texas could have that transformation on people, possibly.
That's true.
Or maybe he put on a cowboy hat, he never looked back, and it just transformed him completely.
It is cool. It's a very influential piece of clothing. Hits hard.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have tried it at one point or time.
The cowboy hat?
Yeah, usually at parties and stuff, but...
So they just put it on during a party?
Yeah. Well, it's just like, oh, man, I got to wear this hat.
Have you ever wore a cowboy hat?
I'd probably put one on. I don't think I've worn it. It would be embarrassing.
It's sad that it's embarrassing.
I could never wear, like, every time I even just put on a cowboy hat, my jeans became unbearably tight. I just couldn't do it. It's like, oh, man.
Did you ever wear, like, a sports team hat at all when you were younger?
Occasionally. I have a Toronto Blue Jays cap I wear now.
Oh, nice.
Are you a fan, or you just wear it for the style?
I was looking for a team to get into, and I can't like teams that are good. So,
That makes
Toronto Blue Jays.
Do some guys start following sports teams just so they can wear the hat?
Yeah, I think so. I like, well, when I was a kid, I would buy all sorts of jerseys just because, like, I was found Sean Kemp in the Sonics. It's like Sean Kemp.
It's weird because Sean Kemp, I used to watch maybe a little bit of basketball. Mm-hmm. Like it's Seattle, but I really like Sean Kemp too, and I have no idea why. I think awesome. It was related to someone's T-shirt that I saw that had Sean Kemp on it.
The Charlotte Hornets were another awesome thing when I was a kid, just because they had the cool blue hornet.
Yeah, they had a pretty cool mascot.
Orlando Magic was awesome to me because
of Shaq.
Shaq and wasn't Horace Grant on there too? Like,
yeah, he was on that team.
He was awesome with his like eye goggles. What other teams? Florida Marlins, didn't know anyone on the team, but had the jacket, had the starter jacket.
Why? I don't.
Because it had a cool Marlin on it, and you're in 5th grade. Like, that's where was that dumb as a kid. Oh, I want
just
a fish
don't.
Jacket.
Anybody that like I met a guy and I was like, "You're wearing a Marlins hat. Why are you wearing a Marlins hat?" He's like, "I used to live there and I used to get into the games for free." And I was like, "I still don't understand. Why are you wearing a Marlins hat?"
What about the Dolphins?
I never got into them.
The Orlando Dolphins, is that?
Miami.
Orlando Dolphins.
I once got into a fight with Dan Marino, so.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we're doing a quick jam session. Anything else? Any final thoughts on hats from either one?
Never gonna wear it. Never gonna wear them.
Never gonna wear them. What about you, Ross? Hood guy?
Yeah.
Hood beanie?
Hood beanie.
Lamo sexy. Sexy Lamo. And
are you gonna give up?
I'll be wearing that hat at the symposium this Saturday. So
woo, man,
get yourself ready. So
prepare.
So we will be back in a quick break with Kim Barnes. You guys are not gonna want to miss this. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Prosers. We are in the studio with writer Kim Barnes. Kim Barnes' biggest achievement so far is being my advisor in the MFA in Creative Writing program at the University of Idaho here in Moscow. As well, Kim currently holds authority over Ross and Jason in a fiction workshop and a fiction techniques class focusing on transgressive literature. I know this because they both love to report back to me the dirtiest things that they hear in class. As my advisor and professor of creative nonfiction, Kim has taught me how to become a meticulous and compassionate detective with my own memories and tendencies and those of my family. And she's taught me how to delicately shape the whole mess of it into something intellectual, lively, and punishing in the good way. Kim, it has been so unexpected and meaningful to know you and work with you. Without knowing it, you've tinkered with the way I approach my life and others. I'm more curious and devilish and open. I'm not grasping so hard to a single identity. I've let her go some, let the reins slack. And you've helped me see that my voice is distinct and competent, and that our voices can be magic like that they can be the thread uniting all the contradictions we contain. So thank you, Kim.
Well, thank you. That was quite an honor to hear that. But I love when students first come into the program and I'm trying to figure out who they are and what I can cultivate. And I have to admit, I take great pleasure in cultivating the profane and the impish as well as the sacred and the craft. But I think that multifaceted personality as a writer is what we're really looking for.
I think that's a great segue into my first question. I have to ask you, and I ask this question partly because I observe this just a touch happening with me, but I have a feeling that it happens with others. Kim, do you think women, particularly younger women, but perhaps some men, are drawn to you as a mentor and writer because they want permission to be bad?
I hope so. Being bad is, an interesting way to look at that. I'm very aware of bringing a little bit of the anarchist that I've always been in my own life to the classroom, making sure that students have permission to not only be bad or be wrong, but to try out acts that may be profane in the context of literature, but mostly to not be afraid that they will be judged for writing that's not working or for thoughts that perhaps they shouldn't be having, but to give them permission to explore without judgment, that is hugely important to me. At the same time, I have a real strong drive towards self-discipline, and I want to see that drive in my students as well. So I love the mix of kind of a wild mind and a freedom to act out and to be improvisational and to take risks. That is so important in writing and in any art. And at the same time, to bring, it seems contrary, I know, and it is. It's negative capability. That's what we're all about. But to bring a kind of self-discipline and determination and stubbornness to that, I think those are the most exciting writers and students.
Has there ever been anything where something was too bad? Or
as far as its art?
I meant bad in terms of like bad behavior, not like bad writing.
Bad.
Like bad behavior.
Bad writing.
No, I know, but I mean, you're talking about like opening the student's mind and letting them explore, which I think that's awesome. I don't think enough teachers say that to students. I feel like a lot of them just kind of. I mean, I've been in classrooms where there is judgment and it's horrible. And but then there's also classes sometimes where it's like, what if someone does cross that line to where, I mean, is there a line that you have, or do you just kind of?
The line is very distinct to me. If I expect the students to be discerning with each other and challenging, but they also better be taking care of each other.
Yeah.
And really, my children curse me because growing up, when they were growing up, I would say to them, there's only one way you can ever disappoint me. And they'd say, what's that? And I'd say, if you are intentionally unkind to another person. They were like, are you kidding me?
That's the only way.
That's the only, but it was the hardest thing. They felt like it was impossible. In fact, they thought I had cursed them, like with this impossible challenge that they couldn't not disappoint me. You see what I mean? Because they would at some point be intentionally unkind. But it doesn't mean you can't challenge and you can't tease. I love teasing. I'm from a culture and a Southern tradition and, out of Oklahoma and the logging camps of Idaho where teasing is like a mark of affection, but it's also, you have to be careful because it can kind of come into bullying.
You seem to be that is one skill of yours I admire, and you have ability to tease in a way that's very tactful. I'm sure you cross the line sometimes, but also in a way that permits people to be who they are or to be bad. That's different from just saying, yeah, be bad. Like it's different from like, yeah, anything goes. Like it allows it in through this other route.
Right.
That
one incident, and I have to be careful about teasing, by the way, because not everyone is from a teasing culture. And someone who isn't used to being teased can really be traumatized by being teased. And I've learned, that a lot of the teasing I was raised with that I saw as a form of, you had to be worth it to be teased in my family, like my uncles. If they teased you, that meant they saw you. If they didn't tease you, you weren't worth their time. And that's kind of sick. You know,
it's like good friends, though. It's like you're always being
trash
so
talking.
horrible to like your best friends that you know. It's I mean, at least for me,
No, it's. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why, even now, it's easier for me to be around men. Of that, like the kind of guys I was raised with and everything, who trash talk and tease hard and that kind of thing. And I get that. I get that so much. But I was doing a book club here in Moscow, and I was saying it was like 15 women in this book club, and some of them were in their 90s. And still, being in this book club. But I was saying, yes, my uncles, this is how they get us down. They literally knock us down when they walked in the door, get on top of us, thump on our chest, do the head rub, do the rope twist on the arms, and you're yowling because you're in pain. Oh. But if you could laugh and take it, then you were okay with them. You got attention. And I was telling this book club this, and this one elder woman, 90-some years old, there's this long silence, and she goes, "Oh, honey, they were just a bunch of bullies." And it dawned on me for the first time, she was kind of right. So, go ahead.
No, that's a good. Yeah, that's actually also kind of a good point for my next question to you, which is, maybe this is kind of a little different, but a little bit less about writing in the classroom. But when do you tell someone that you love them, and do you have a fraught relationship with the word? I do. I feel like I have a fraught relationship with the word and have only started to claim it by using it more recklessly. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. The word love was, I was raised in the Pentecostal faith, right? So agape was kind of the ultimate kind of love. But you said you loved only the people in your immediate family. And that wasn't even across the board. That was my family. My family, my mom and dad and my brother and I, they were very good at saying, "I love you." My father, not so much. He would, kind of love you. Yeah. But even now, my mom and I and my brother and I, when we call each other or hang up the phone, it's always "I love you, sis," or "I love you, Mom." So that's not saying that would be a really big deal. Of course, my husband, and before that, my boyfriends, love was all over, everywhere. But it becomes it's like currency to me. Yeah. So when I have to get real close to a friend, and I don't have very many really close friends, and then it's very important. The love word gets used a lot, but I have students and I have colleagues who just they sign off love to everybody, and I'm like, oh dear.
Wow. That's awkward.
I've had some friends that have said it all the time, way too much, but I'm fascinated mostly with people who tend to overuse it, or sign off of it in emails or use it. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, and it's also sweet, isn't it? I kind of wish I had that ability not to hold on to it like currency. Yeah. You know what I mean? Why not just spread that around? It gets in with students.
Do you ever have a student that wants to hear you love them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and of course, if the student signs off on an email, love, and it happens. Yeah. It's very noticeable that you don't sign love back. It's like, take care. you know.
So do you like kind of make a conscious decision, like, all right, Kim, how are you gonna handle this one?
Or what about like XOXO?
No, never XO.
I've done XOXO a lot because a friend said it to me lately. No, with friends that don't want to tell me that they love me, but it could happen. But they say XOXO, and I've been doing it back. But I think it's kind of meaningless. I don't think
air kiss. So New York loves XOXO. So there's this whole thing in New York publishing. You start reading their code. You know, if you're not from it, you start learning it. And I always say they love, or they love, or they love. And so this is their code for how much they like what you've sent them in your writing. So if you get one love, it's nice, you know. But if you get a double love, I love this, you've moved up the appreciation of your work skill. But if you get a triple love, a love times 3, I love this, then you're like in. You're in. But New York signs off X.
The inflation has gone up there with the word love.
Is it like a tennis thing? Isn't
like
that
lobbing back and forth?
Or no, like, or
scoring
isn't love
is love.
a score?
Yeah,
in
well,
tennis?
love is
0.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
On that lovely note, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be back with more Kim. Stay tuned to Prosers. Welcome back to KRFP 90.3 Moscow Pullman. We are in studio with Kim Barnes. Thank you for listening. So, right now we're going to, our conversation, we were talking before this, Katherine was talking to Kim about her ability to connect with students and other people on an emotional level. So we're going to do a little role-playing game right now. So basically, the thing that Katherine admires about Kim is her ability to connect with people on the emotional level, like we were saying. And it seems Katherine is interested in learning how Kim is able to pull this off. And most people, it seems, to have bland conversations with one another, but what am I doing here? Sorry.
Come on,
most people have like.
Are you having a stroke?
I think I did. I gotta stop reading this thing. But most people just have conversations that are just boring, and Kim seems to want to get more into the more things that matter, the emotional, like who the person actually is. And Katherine wanted to basically learn that skill. And
teach me, Kim.
So what we're gonna do? So we're gonna have Katherine play Kim, and Kim is gonna play a student. And I give a scenario for the student. The student is a first-year MFA nonfiction student at the University of Idaho who's meeting Kim for the very first time. And we'll give you a name. We'll call the student Elizabeth. If that's just some name, just so we kind of get detached.
It matters.
So Kim, you're going to be Elizabeth, and Katherine, you're going to play Kim.
Okay.
And the scene is going to be Kim's office, and Kim and Elizabeth, the respective roles, are sitting facing one another. And lastly, last thing you need to know, Kim or Elizabeth, is that you're sort of an apprehensive student. So the questions that the person may be asking,
which is every student I see, yeah,
they may be a bit they may seem a bit intrusive at times. So with that said,
this could be bad.
So with that said, Katherine is Kim, Kim is Elizabeth, a first-year MFA nonfiction student, and
are you going to call scene?
I'll call scene, yes.
Okay.
And so here it is.
Hi. We are just so delighted to have you into the program. You must be far from home. You're from Southern California.
Yeah, and all I brought were my flip-flops.
Oh, my gosh. That is so interesting that you only packed your flip-flops for graduate school. I think it's really brave and
or stupid.
No. I think packing flip-flops for this kind of environment is just it shows quite a spine, and it must have something to do with your ancestry or your lineage. I assume you must. I don't know. I'm just taking a guess. What were your parents like?
My parents?
Mother and father, I assume. Maybe others.
I don't know, just Southern California.
Now, what footwear did your mother wear?
I don't remember. I don't know. She had diabetes. And so she always had to wear these like special shoes because her feet swelled up all the time, and especially in the heat. But I just like flip-flops.
I assume that she wore them when she was pregnant with you. It just came to me, but perhaps not.
That was, I don't know, they don't really talk about that very much, but there's some pictures from that time, and she really had a hard time with the pregnancy.
Now, was that related to her diabetes, or was
they told her she shouldn't have children. The doctor told her that she wasn't supposed to get pregnant, but she did, and here I am.
Now, hold on a second. She wasn't supposed to get pregnant, partly because of her diabetes, but did anything else happen to her when she was younger? Did she ever reveal anything about that to you?
My mom and dad split up. I don't know, a lot of those stories I just don't know because I was raised by my grandma and grandpa, and so they just didn't talk about that very much. But I know she was pregnant with me when she and my dad got married.
Oh, I see. She was already pregnant with you. So you feel like your father, there's something there with the father. Of course. Always the father.
And scene. We'll call it there. We'll end it on the father.
So ridiculous.
Good job. Way to follow that trail.
So now we were just going to talk about it a little bit. From an outsider's point of view.
Oh, man, I feel like I almost got to something and then I didn't quite. Something with the father.
Something with the father.
Oh, yeah.
But it seemed from an outsider's point of view that, I don't know, that I thought you both
Elizabeth was vulnerable very fast.
I thought she was holding it back, but I felt like the questions you were asking they didn't seem like threatening. They seemed very sort of, you were interested in
very
her.
Intuitive.
Yeah, and you were kind of, I don't know, it didn't seem that bad for the student. Like, it seemed like the student had some time struggling with it, but then it was still kind of hard to pull it out of the student.
Well, one thing I noticed that I was thinking Catherine Kim, I was thinking, dial it back a little bit, sister. Because one thing you learn, because you went into therapist mode, right?
Oh, gosh, okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Write notes down.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned is when to really read the student and when to push and when to pull back and when to sit back and laugh and say, you can, that might be something you want to write about or maybe not, but whatever, these stories are, it's all about story, and so, but some students are ready. They're like ready.
Yeah.
Just to give you divulge all the information?
And they're ready. It's not that they're ready to divulge. They're ready to be asked.
All right.
They're safe. They want to be seen. They want a place to tell this. So I want to make that space, but we got 3 years.
Do you feel that you sense that with specifics? Like, how do you tell which student, like, how can you just body language and
their eyes and the way, I'm real sensitive to body language. I over monitor my own environment. I'm someone who does that. So I'm I'm an empath, which means I don't have a lot of veil between me and the people around me, and it kind of goes back and forth. I can really feel emotions. So, but of course, if a student is really resistant, in fact, sometimes gets angry, and they see exactly what's going on, and they don't want me or anyone else coming in. And of course, then it's like, okay, we're not going to go there. But it's harder, especially in nonfiction.
Yeah, I was going to ask about if you have a student like that in nonfiction. And granted, in nonfiction, sometimes you don't necessarily have to write. You don't have to divulge all your secrets. But I wonder if you feel more pressure to kind of push or...
If that's the direction, if they're going to go there, they got to go there.
Yeah.
But if, like, I use the history of garlic. If they're going to write about the history of garlic, not so much. I may need to know why they're interested in the history of garlic, and that may lead us into discussion. But how much of that ends up on the page?
I see. It all has to do with their intention and where they want to go. But I assume you must get some students that want to go there, but are also at the same time. Does that happen? They're also at the same time are closed off in a way, even though they're writing about...
Really, there's so much psychology to this. And, it's like I often say to the psychologists that I interact with sometimes because of students who are, in distress or something, is that I'm not trained to do this. Yeah. But we got to do it anyway. In nonfiction, you still got to go there. And I give all these trigger warnings, like be careful, and especially people who are dealing with trauma narratives. You have to be so careful. But and this is part of therapy too, but what you learn is that often if the person wants to go there, that probably means he or she is ready to go there.
That makes sense.
Because their gatekeepers are starting to let them think about this. But boy, I monitor people who have gone through trauma. I monitor them so carefully because they think they know, but they don't know what's going to happen. When they open up that narrative, it can just be like the world splits and is gone. And they often go into trauma response. So they will, if they're writing about abuse or sexual trauma, they'll often start reliving that. So if I know they're going there, they have to get a support. I have requirements. They get a support network set up. They have to be in contact with a professional. They have to know what might happen and what to do if it does. So it can be quite serious. But even just everyday narratives, we think it has to be something like, big trauma or abuse or something. But I had a student years ago who was in her 30s, and her family never said a word about anything. There was no emotional vulnerability, no talk about emotions. And so she said, I can't, and there was abuse in the family, but she said, I can't write about that. So I said, well, do a process paper. Just tell me about your mom in the kitchen. What was that like? And she said, okay, I can do that. I can just, her mom's making stew in the kitchen. And so she wrote this really wonderful detailed piece about watching her mother make stew in the kitchen, and kind of seeing her back. You know how it is when the traditional mom in the kitchen, you see a lot of her back. And she showed it to her mom, and her mom went nuts. How dare you expose our family that way?
Oh, wow.
And because there's a lot, you can tell a whole story just describing your mother's back while she's making stew. Oh, yeah. And you don't think you're telling it, but the emotions and the tone and the word choice give us subtext, even if you don't know it's there. So,
wow.
So do you feel like you were naturally like this, or do you feel like it mainly happened when you became a teacher? Like you were sort of having this interest in people, or was it your whole life? You would ask sort of questions, like as a child, would you be the kind of straight forth? I mean, with just kind of like what you want to know, I'm going to ask it and kind of see where it goes.
I think I was born that way. My mom says you never knew a stranger. If you had been a little kid today, you would have been kidnapped. And it's like, oh, thanks,
nice.
Mom. Always interested in other people, but mostly I'm just so interested in story. And I grew up without TV and that kind of thing, and grew up with books. But it's a strange thing growing up in fundamentalist religion, because it is, and we were charismatic, holy rollers, there was the laying on of hands, there was the speaking in tongues. I was a child faith healer. And so there was a lot of reading each other for sin and virtue and need. Do you need me to pray for you? You know, that was a really big deal. And laying on of hands, literally, you know, and feeling as a child faith healer, I had, you know, I would like feel where your pain was. And what a strange thing for an 11-year-old girl to be doing. And, but after I left the church, and I went to college as an adult, my mother and father, and my mother still continues to believe that I use my teaching and story as healing. So they believe that I continue the prophecy that was made over me. And I think some part of me does believe that story heals.
Yeah, definitely.
If you can survive
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I guess what I try to give my students is the belief that they can survive that journey. That's what I want to give them, that they can survive that.
Awesome. And one last thing, and then we're going to move on to another quick game. So then Catherine's critique. So less therapist.
I feel like I channeled something a little predatory. I apologize for.
So I'm like, yeah, look
Also,
really good.
one of my weaknesses when playing characters, and I've gotten critiqued on this, is that I tend to go absurd instead of rein it back in and playing more of the straight character. And I noticed it's like I can't to like get in there.
So rein it in a little bit, watch the body language, try to, I don't know.
It's like story, you know, when I tell you guys where's your texture, you need tone texture, you need it not to all be
like one
intense,
thing. Yeah.
you know, like intense Kim. You need to have humor, you need to laugh, you need to back off, you need to move forward, you need to read. And I will, especially with students, I mean, Catherine is, you know, when Catherine and I get together now, we're just right there because she knows it, she's gone there, she knows how we interact, and I don't feel like I have to, like, you know, prepare, prep her. That doesn't mean I'm not still aware of where she needs or wants to go. But the early on with the students, I think, you know, humor and letting... There's something called holding space, where you hold space for each other. Like if someone is in crisis, you can just be there with them, and it's called holding space. It's one of those. I don't know where it comes from, but I like the idea. But I think as a teacher and a mentor, one of my jobs is to hold space for the students, and sometimes that means just being quiet.
Yeah.
And not breaking eye contact. Just I'm here.
You got it now, Catherine?
I understand.
All right. Well, that was great. I think
Kim.
that makes sense. I mean, so now we're going to move on to another small game. We're going to do an improvised short story. So how this works is I'll start with an opening sentence such as, "Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful princess." I know that's really cliche. We already talked about it. Just stay with me. After I say a line like that, it will go on to Ross, who will build off the last sentence with another sentence, such as,
"You should have killed me when you had the chance."
That sounds like a great story.
But anyways, that would have read, "Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful princess. You should have killed me when I had the chance." And then we'll go on to Kim.
"Who should have killed me when she had the chance?" There we go.
There you go. All right. So
Edits.
Then it would go to Kim. Then it'll go to, and we're just going to add sentence by sentence. But the trick here is, which makes it difficult, is that we're writers, and so we should kind of be aware of what's happening and try our best to create a fully realized short story in about 3 to 5 minutes time. So, I mean, be on the lookout for if we need a character inserted, conflict,
false
resolutions, things. So we gotta. It could go horribly wrong, but
listeners should text in their responses.
Yeah. And then after we create the story, I'll stop it at about, like I said, we'll find it doesn't have to end on me, it doesn't have to end on anyone specific. We'll kind of all look at each other kind of know when it's gonna end, the collective conscious or whatever, and we'll end it there. And after that's done, we'll critique it like we're in a workshop. So
workshop.
Yeah. Just
Not Barry Hanna's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my.
So I'll start it off with a sentence. Let's see here. I'll just say Elizabeth since I have that name. Elizabeth stood at the pier looking out into the blue sky.
That's bad.
Yeah. The first sentence is the most important sentence.
All right.
We got no inventory.
All right.
No, okay.
Someone else start the sentence then.
No, just insert a piece of inventory
All right.
instead of blue sky.
Elizabeth held the knife above her dead husband.
Beneath the blue sky.
Beneath the blue sky. All right. Thank you, Cam. All right. Now Ross. Yeah, you got so much pressure here.
In the distance, she could hear the wail of sirens.
Is that WHALE?
Oh.
Yes.
The animal, the whale.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cat she had put into her backpack the night before had gone still.
Her husband looked up at her and smiled.
She said, oh no, and stabbed him again in the heart.
She hated him for his love of the Dallas Cowboys and the many Dallas Cowboys collectibles he kept in the house.
Especially that Dallas Cowboys hat. She hated the hat, and she hated the way he wore it. She hated that he always wore it, and it was too big for his head because his head was so small, and she had always hated to touch his head. And now the hat made his head look even smaller with its cavernous top and its ridiculous bill.
Good luck, Catherine.
Oh, that hat. That hat that was made of cat skin. Oh, he always preferred his hats to be made of cat skin. In fact, just the day before, he had brought home a cat. And he had, well, she wasn't sure. ...
But she was sure now that the cat was with her and her dead husband, and the cat was now licking the dead husband's blood that oozed from his chest. And she knew the cat would not go hungry.
The end.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all right. So obviously, the story, a quick premise of the story, I guess.
Okay, we have to go. Okay, so they're not on a pier. That was edited.
Oh, okay.
It's a blue sky.
They're
So the
outside.
whales
They're
are
near
beside the
the
point, yeah.
ocean.
Okay.
It could have come back in. I
Yeah.
feel like the whale should have come back in.
But the husband had this hat that she was really driving. It drove her to
insane.
kill him, basically. But then the husband had the cat. He brought the cat home, but then she had the cat in her backpack. And then
Yeah, it was a little unclear.
How the cat got out of the backpack to lick the blood?
Right, and how she got the cat. Was the cat dead? No.
I thought it was alive.
It had gone quiet.
Yeah,
we don't know
Oh, it
if
had
it's
gone
dead.
quiet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, and then I had thought, so he used cat skin for his hats.
Yeah.
Which is a little transgressive.
A little.
I think it's, but not unbelievable.
Who doesn't turn their turn a cat into a hat
So
that
do you think
supports their favorite sports team.
Oh yeah, then he had the Dallas Cowboys too. That's what started the hat thing.
Well,
'Cause he was,
Maybe he really hated the Cincinnati Bengals.
So
So he killed cats.
was that cat going to be a new hat? Maybe
Yeah.
maybe she.
Yeah, that was what I. Yeah,
He was a
It
haberdasher.
wasn't on the page.
The
It wasn't
cat
on
in the hat. We've got a
So,
number
yeah.
of things going here. We got, Cat in the Rain. I was thinking of Hemingway. I don't know if you remember the tension between the couple is embodied in this little kitten out in the rain, and the woman. I don't know if you remember this story, but and I think if I remember right, he brings it into her, and it's all wet. But I can't remember. But it's all about their relationship, it's being projected on this kitten. So, but I also think of A Modest Proposal. So everybody's always complaining about cats. So many cats in the yard. And the city cats, the cats in Rome are amazing. They have all this problem with cats in Rome. Well, this might be a guy who decides he's got a modest proposal. He's going to figure out a way to make use of those cats.
Do you think she was killing him because she disapproved of the cat hats?
I think it also had to do with his small head.
Yeah, I think the head sounded like she was obsessed with that to the point where
He was a haberdasher with a small head. And she couldn't reconcile those two things.
It sounded like something that's just building up over the years of their time together, and it was finally drove her to that point of where she had to kill him.
And this is absurd, but it's in the tradition of certain writers who write in this kind of, I think of even George Saunders, might do something, absurd enough like this. George would probably have a moral underpinning, a takeaway of compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because that's real important to him. It's interesting. He's such an absurd, he writes, edgy, experimental, interesting stuff. But when he talks, like in interviews and stuff, he's amazingly concerned with ethical behavior and compassion and being
I think he
humane.
would be very compassionate towards the husband in this.
The small-headed
The small-headed
haberdasher.
husband.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of his stories, the people are just everyday people kind of getting crushed by society or whatever, the capitalist society and all that.
So if we were to rewrite this, so for a student, say, that brought this story in, it's probably only a page or two, obviously.
Right.
But what would you?
Snap fiction.
What would we say that needs to be done in the rewrite in order to get it up to par? Or if they wanted to stick with it, would we have to change the scenario? Would we have to get more? See their relationship, or can we do it with the murder where it starts at the death and it's something
Is that a good? I think that's a great starting point. But
like, where would it go, or what advice would you give the student if they brought
That's all they had.
That's all they had. They wouldn't be. They wouldn't be in the program, probably, right?
Well, actually, I think you could make that short fiction. I think you can make that story work. You'd have to balance the absurd with some kind of pathos. In class we're always talking about pathos. Where's the pathos in this?
Yeah.
So if he was killing the cats for hats and she wanted to save the animals, could that be sort of something or that be more moral, maybe? Or
Go ahead.
Oh, that could work, I guess, but something with her, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would be hard to do, like a 100-word flash fiction type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the easiest place to go is that he was abusive to her. But that is the easiest place to go.
What if he killed her favorite cat with the hat?
Would that be enough to put her over? And I'm thinking of something that Chris Abani said. Now, he's an amazing writer, but writes a lot. His work is often very brutal and violent, but also he can work in, can be elements of the absurd in it. But he read a scene in which someone is stabbed with a knife. Mm-hmm. And it's graphic. He is one of those writers who finds redemption through that. There is redemption to be had in violence. Okay, But he said, someone said, and it may have been me asking the question, it probably was, because I've been having an argument with someone about this. So I wanted Chris to be on my side. But I said, what do you say to people when you say, why do you write such graphic, brutal, violent stuff? And he said, well, of course, this is also a part of the world, and this is part of the world I know as well, because he had been held political prisoner. Was it in Kenya? I can't remember. But anyway, as a kid, do you guys know this story?
No.
He had written a story that was like about the overthrow of the government, and they found it. And I don't know if the real rebels actually used it as a template, but he was imprisoned as a teenage boy for this. And so his story is really amazing, but he saw a lot of violence, you know. But he said, but it's more than that. He said, it's my job as a writer to not only be the victim and to be the assailant. And I have to love the victim, and I have to love the assailant. He said, but I also have to love the knife. And that's, you know, that is actually profane. That's really, it's sacrilege to us. That you could inhabit each of those things. I happen to agree with him. I think you have to be able to imagine yourself. Maybe you shouldn't, but I think you have to be able to do that. So if we love the pin-headed man, and we love the woman who is stabbing him, and we also love the knife, you know, does that tell us, is this, so then we have inventory. So, and our inventory, so one thing Ron Carlson always says is, if you don't know where you're going, cast back into your inventory. When you rewrite, cast back into your inventory. And he means the literal inventory on the page, like give me a knife, give me a boat, give me a well, give me, you know, put something on the stage. And so if we imagine that knife probably was the knife, it's probably a skinning knife. You would skin a cat like you skin a rabbit. And so he's being killed by his own knife. But I think there would have to be another level. I think that you have the cats, and you have her trying, and she can't stand him anymore. But I think there's probably a third dimension to this. Another thing, yeah. So if the cats are the thing, what's the other thing?
Well, with that, if one of you listeners out there know that other thing and want to write that story, feel free. Just give me, Kim, Catherine, Ross credit.
Or not.
Or not, yeah. Or just take it and get famous and leave us here on the radio. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. You are tuned into Prosers, KRFP 90.3. We have Kim Barnes in the studio. So, for the final segment, this is Catherine's final year as a nonfiction student in the creative writing department at the University of Idaho. And Kim has been Catherine's major thesis advisor for how year? It starts pretty much, that happens after the first year, right?
Couple years, yeah.
So they've known each other for about 3 years now. And it's nearing the end. In a few weeks, Catherine will defend her thesis and present it to her committee. So for this final part of the interview, we basically want to talk about both of your relationship throughout that time. And the first question we wanted to ask was, what were your first impressions of each other? And either one of you could answer that first, and then we'll go to the other one. So first impressions of Catherine, or whoever wants to take it.
I'll start. So I was told before coming here from a friend of a friend, I think it was the writer Christina Garcia, said that Kim Barnes is very nurturing. So I think I came in thinking that, I don't know what associations I had with the word nurturing, but I came in first, talking to Kim on the phone and meeting you, Kim, and think I I don't know how I got it wrong. You were nurturing in a totally different way than I thought you'd be. And this is partly what we were talking about earlier, is instead of just, oh, yeah, you're great. Go anywhere, say anything. You're permissive in a way, but I found in a way that totally surprised me, which is that you were, you allow things, but in this very sort of subtle, intellectual, teasing, very witchy way.
Are you a good witch or a bad?
I have a question. I have a question about something that you, in one of our, I think in our first workshop, you assessed me in a certain way, and I don't know if I remember it right, but I did want to ask you about that. But I don't know if I can just go into it now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I don't know if I remember this right, but we were talking, I think you were assessing the tone of the essay I had written, and you suggested that I wasn't on the autistic spectrum, but that my voice on the page might have had some autistic traits or tendencies. And then you brought up, and I swear you said I had quirky personality disorder, and that was something in the DSM-5. But that's not in the DSM-5. There's no such thing as quirky personality disorder. Explain yourself.
So, yes. Yeah. I actually remember the quirky, and a psychiatrist had told me that quirky, not a personality disorder. Personality disorders are much different. Personality disorders are very serious. Very serious. But
it was like quirky typo. I don't know. You had this careful way.
The idea of being quirky is something that they articulate as a trait. I remember saying that because quirky, and I think I did put it out as a challenge. So often when I say stuff like that, I'm interested in the student's response. I want to see, it's like I'm plumbing certain, how do they see themselves? How do they react to this? What are their, I think the other thing over the years is that I've talked about, you have a trickster quality and an impish quality. And all these things are things that I really value in your writing and in your personality. But quirky is a weird word because it's hard to take kind of seriously. And at the same time, if you're going to be an artist and a writer, one of your jobs is to surprise us with where you take us and to make connections that we didn't know existed. And that's like the very definition of quirky. You know what I mean? And I think it's absolutely one of your strengths. It's something I wanted to nurture. I was very worried. That you would have the quirky knocked out of you.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And you know how it is. I mean, you come into an MFA program, and what sometimes should be seen as a strength is seen as an undesirable characteristic or quality. Everybody tries to iron out the wrinkles, but one of my great fears, I was like, don't lose quirky, Catherine. And I was like, don't you dare. And what I really loved was that you didn't, that you listened to what everybody had to say, and you made it work for you in your writing, but you never gave up that incredibly unique way of seeing the world that I have been a fan of from day one. What I remember about meeting you, I don't remember the first office or class. I remember our first drink.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do too.
We went and had
was
Nectar.
Laura Zach
Oh yeah,
there?
Laura Zach was there.
Yeah, and we.
Or I think we were. It was like the two of us for a little while alone though before she came.
Yeah. And what I remember is, I had a sense you weren't sure you had made the right decision, and I had a real strong sense that it was going to be hard for you to really give yourself over to this decision. And I guess I'd say that I'm not sure that's wholly gone away for you. I feel like you've always had a little bit of tension.
I think that's true. I mean, I think I knew with that. I remember there was one discussion where you said, I said, I need to be doing more here because I don't teach, and I was just feeling like I had too much free time, but I didn't know if I wanted to join stuff. And you said, well, if you're not doing it right now, you don't want to do it. And in my head, I was like, oh, no, that's not how I work. I usually resist things for a long time, and then when I do them, I'm very happy I do them. But yeah, that hasn't. I knew that from the start I wasn't going to stop being here, but I got much more invested in what I was doing and the people here.
Well, when I started asking you the Kim questions, like you were saying, or you were asking Elizabeth, and about your family and the ranch, and because you had written a piece to get into the program that was about a relationship you were in, and you had taken this person to the ranch, and there was a sense of your mother and father there, and this tradition, and the inheritance that was going to be yours, and was this young man going to be a part of that? And I thought, oh man, there's a lot going on. There's so much to unravel here. And you were not real keen on going there. Very, very, and I think rightly so, protective of and I think of a vulnerability. I think there was a, you joke about, are you judging me? When you're telling friends, about what you're doing or what your life is made up of and everything like this. And I think you didn't know how to turn that into a story that people would even begin to read and accept. And you have. I mean, you've just done it brilliantly. I think, by the way, that Katherine takes that impishness and there's a kind of whimsy that you feel that is part of her improvisational spirit, and she marries that to an amazing intellect and a bravery and a fearlessness that astounds me. It really does. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, definitely.
Of Katherine's writing.
Thank you,
And
Karen.
I tried to tell you that, but I don't want to make you shy.
Thank you, Ken. I claim that. That's great. Thank you.
So you feel like her writing, so then eventually you got more.
Oh yeah.
She's opened up more. And
Well, Katherine can still be real cagey.
Mm-hmm.
It has created interesting tension. Mm-hmm. What Katherine
Cagey. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, that goes along with these other things.
I'll be on the blurb.
Yeah. What Katherine will sometimes show you in her family's life is alarming. I mean, like, whoa, I don't know if I would have exposed that. Mm-hmm. That's me, and I'll expose like anything, but it's real, it's almost transgressive in what is exposed. And at the same time, there's like, there's this, like, there it is. So what? Why are you making a big deal out of it? Mm-hmm. I'm not. And then at the same time, there are things that she struggles with in her writing that seem so mundane to everyone else. And it creates this fascinating, it feels to me like a reverse charge You know what I mean? But it creates this amazing tension, this amazing energy, and I never know where it's gonna explode, where it's gonna spark, except it does it at just the right place, where she has that great instinct. So it's nonfiction that I've coined this new term. I get so tired. People fighting about, is it, all
fiction or nonfiction? Or?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's all
me
fiction,
too.
and
I
what
love
is
that
memoir?
fight.
Oh, you get so
Fiction,
tired.
bring it.
of
No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
It is the worst.
I'm gonna start up a club next year, fiction and nonfiction debates.
Yeah, and they'll just go on all
Yeah.
night. You know, and
man.
people, I mean, the worst thing in the world to have started an MFA party.
Yeah.
At midnight is, and then people are like, no, but and they're smoking and they're drinking, they're like camped out
At
on
the
your
same
deck.
time.
Yeah.
And then a poet's in the corner just looking down.
Going like, jeez, guys. But I think some of it is, people are always saying, oh, creative nonfiction, right? Haha, that means you can create anything you want.
Christmas parties, I get that all the time.
And I want to
Older
say,
men usually
stop
make that
being
joke.
intentionally ignorant.
Yeah.
That's intentional ignorance.
Yeah.
Don't go there. But I think I like this new term I thought of, which is personal investigative journalism. I think we're going to have to shorten it to PIDGE.
Pidge.
But it takes on a different kind of authority where if you are investigating the self, the character of the self, like you investigate a fictional character, that is very interesting, and that's
Yeah.
where the tension resides. The tension doesn't reside in what happened. In nonfiction, it resides in why it happened, or why you think it happened, or why you're remembering it, or why you would put it on the page at all. We're fascinating by your attempt to wrestle with that to make sense of it. And so what I love about Catherine's writing, even though it's very personal and there's a lot of exposure and self-exposure and vulnerability, but there's this tremendous intellect, but you can feel the tension of her attempting to investigate the story of the self, and you understand that she understands it's a construct, that the self is a construct. And that is what she is investigating. How did this construct come to be? Where there was when I got my first movie camera, and started filming myself as a sports newscaster. Or there's when I got to remodel my bedroom, and then there's this.
Yeah.
And so, but she has to piece that together in a way that makes sense to us, and we have to be able to follow it. And it's one of the great strengths of Catherine's writing.
Awesome. Well,
That doesn't mean she'll pass her defense.
I was
Stay
going to say, I
tuned.
wish you could just say that all. I wish I could just say that all about myself in my defense.
well, we got about that's great advice, and that's awesome. I never even thought of it like that, really, because I haven't taken a nonfiction class, so hopefully next year I'll be able to.
Get ready.
I never even thought about nonfiction like that, really.
Well, and so many. There's a piece on memoir that was just out in the New York Times or something, and all these other writers are throwing words around like the confessional. I hate writing confessional, and they don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They don't know the history and tradition of the genre, yet they're using these words like they do. And the thing is, nonfiction, this idea of writing about the self, has a long history and tradition, and it has craft just like anything else. And the idea that you can, that fiction and nonfiction are the same. It's like saying that an oboe and a cello are the same. I can
They're
play
not?
an oboe, right? Well, in your hands,
yeah.
but
Terrible.
but they're both musical instruments, but they require completely different set of skills.
With that said, we have time for one last question, and it is to Kim. And where do you see Catherine in 10 years?
You can take this anywhere you want.
Wearing a cowboy hat.
Bringing it back around.
It's probably as good as it's going to get.
She'll be in the Texas Rangers.
All I know is that wherever she is and whatever she's doing, she will be engaging creatively with the world in a way that will challenge the world and challenge herself.
That's great. Well,
that is great.
That sounds great.
Nice.
Catherine, you're gonna go home, sleep well. So you're gonna sleep good tonight after all these.
Yeah, this is great. I've got all the self-confidence I need to get a good rest of sleep tonight.
All right. Well, thanks, Kim. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks so much, Kim.
All right. Once again, we are Prosers. We're on Thursday nights. We'll be back in 2 weeks at 7:30. We also have a Facebook page, Prosers. Check it out if you like. Have a good night.